Hello and welcome to Let's Waffle, where we talk about everything in the State League. John Townsend here with Ross Lewis. John, we've gone through the first quarter of the football season already.
Yes, and there's a few trends starting to become apparent, aren't there? We know that Claremont are a good side. They're continuing to go very nicely. But West Perth, South Fremantle and Perth, haven't they surprised everyone in the game just about? West Perth being the biggest surprise packet. Identical to last year though, 4-0 after the first month of the year. Then they ran into a rampaging Claremont side and got knocked off, and that derailed their season pretty much. But they meet Claremont in a couple of weeks' time. Match of the year so far. What a blockbuster that's going to be. There'll be at least 2,000 people at Claremont Oval for that big one.
Well, if you haven't guessed it by now, we're here to talk about everything in the State League. But John, where are we today? We're travelling around the waffle circles.
Well, I think Swan districts are in the news, aren't they? So it's probably paying tribute to their one of their great heroes.
Yeah, I think we're in the Bill Skorowski Auditorium today. So bit of respect there for the former Black and Whites defender of the early 80s.
He knocked over Phil Cracker one day, and I know he said to Jim Cracker when Daryl Sutton knocked over Phil, "Hey Jimmy, I think he's killed your brother," which precipitated one of the great blues in the history of waffle football.
Those were the days, John.
Yeah, you could say those sort of things without being lambasted for it, other than going into history.
Well, very quickly, we'll just have a look at the winners and grinners from last week. Perth defeated Peel at Brown Stadium. South Fremantle defeated Swan Districts at Steel Blue Oval, and we will talk a little bit about that very soon. West Perth got over the Royals quite comfortably in the end, although it was a bit of an arm wrestle for most of the day up at Arena Joondalup. And Claremont on their winning way once again against Subiaco at the Barking Park.
Yeah, only a couple of barkers there, unfortunately, but good. Good on Subi for having a dip and trying to promote the game. Obviously, there's not a lot of waffle fans amongst our canine population.
They count legs, or do they count heads?
Well, they wanted to count legs, but maybe if they counted teeth, that'd boost the East Perth crowd anyway.
Well, all the focus at the moment on Swan Districts, John. Last year's premier, 0-5 if you take the Foxtel Cup into account, 0-4 in the WAFL. Lost 2 home games. Gee, there'd be some heat on the coach, you would think.
I don't think the spotlight is more firmly placed on any individual in WA football than Greg Harding at the moment. And
is he stiff?
Well, he might be stiff in a few weeks' time if they continue to go as they have done. They've lost their first 4 plus the Foxtel game. One thing in their favour, I guess, is that they've played Claremont, West Perth and South Fremantle, all sides that are 1, 2 and 3 on the ladder. So they've caught the 3 who are the best going around at the moment. So that's some solace for them, I think. And you have a look at their run in the next few weeks. Perth, Peel, East Perth, Subi, East Fremantle. I mean, they could win 5 of their next 5. So that gets them back on track and pushing up for finals. But some bad signs there. I think they've lost players. We know that Justin Simpson's walked out a couple of weeks ago. Matt Riggio was dropped for the Foxtel Cup game and struggling with form. Tony Knott struggling with form. Kyle Hams came in, the former South Fremantle player, and that's caused a bit of a stir about what he's getting paid. So things not going as swimmingly as they would have liked.
It is a reactionary board though, isn't it? I mean, there were rumblings that they may in fact wanted to move on Brian Dawson before the start of last season. He's gone on to coach them to a flag. So you're just wondering whether there might be a little bit of work done behind the scenes. Can they make a change at this point and resurrect their career, resurrect their season?
You mean change the coach? I think that's premature. But if they have another 2 or 3 really ordinary weeks, and that's not just winning, but the way they go about the game, the pressure well and truly comes on him. I mean, the fact that they've got an easier run coming up in the next month perhaps gives him just the opportunity to settle and get some players into position and trying to find some form. I mean, Roberts has been good, their captain. Ash Hansen, I think, has been good, though the delivery to him has been pretty ordinary. But players like Brett Robinson's been a state player. He's a high quality player. Hasn't really fired much. Adam Hunter's done a hammy. I think Robinson did a hammy.
I mean, they haven't lost a lot from the premiership side. No. I mean, they have lost Andrew Cracker, which obviously is a big blow to any side.
They've lost their half back line though, and that's Spencer, Toomey, and Castley, and that's a big blow to any side. That's where modern football is set up, and if you lose the 3 across there, that really hurts. Cornelio's been out of action and will go to the 18s, so another good play. I mean, he only had a flashy end to the year, but he was outstanding in the grand final.
Luke Miles has been okay for them.
Yeah, he's been a pretty good pickup coming back. I think Jaron Jackie's been pretty good, the former Subi player who went over to Adelaide and was on the list there for a couple of years. So they've had a couple of pickups. We know they've got the little fellow Hams come in, but you know there's a few. From what I've seen, Talamames has been in pretty good form as well, but maybe just their midfield's just lacking a little bit. Wolfenden's been very ordinary. You know, for a bloke who was a state player a couple of years ago, he's been very ordinary, and really Harding's got to find something amongst those quite experienced players.
Now conversely, South Fremantle and West Perth, who weren't really amongst the tipsters' fancies for this season, have surprised a few people. Not myself, I did pick West Perth as being probably a bit of a riser because I don't think they're going to be greatly influenced by their AFL talent. They're not going to rely on these players to have a great impact. What they've got is basically what they're going to have each week. And then you have a look at someone like Pierce who's playing in the reserves at the moment, working his way back from injury. Yeah,
well, Strike's their only frontliner. They've got Mellington who's a rookie who's been okay, but Strike's the only bloke who's likely to go in and out. And he was very influential again for them on Saturday. Kicked 4 goals, including their first 3, I think, and then he kicked a beauty in the third quarter, 50 metres out, clutch goal. I mean, game absolutely on the line. It's one of the advantages of the WAFL, Ross, where you're playing games that mean something, that a player comes in and his performance is critical to the team and the crowd. Imagine if he was playing for the West Coast bumnuts down at Peel, when no one gives a rat's whether you win or lose.
Well, it'd be great. He'd be kicking it behind and they'd lose the game, but he'd run off the ground with his hands in the air because he's had 45 possessions. He's kicked the ball laterally. He's played 47 minutes like the Eagles wanted him to, and you know, couldn't care less about the team that's lost the game or won the game on the opposition that are trying to play each week.
Yeah, he was very good. West Perth won it because their backline was just outstanding, and as we said in the paper during the week, 400 game players out of your back 6. I mean that they know each other pretty well. They're good players. Lacra's an outstanding player. Dan Hunt, playing his 100th game, had an absolute cracker against Graham Polak, who I thought was very good in the first quarter and a half. Looked quite lively, dangerous, kicked an early goal. Didn't touch the ball after about the 20-minute mark in the second quarter. And then you've got Zach Clark, who was playing against Dion Flay, who was giving away a head and a couple of arms. Absolutely shellacked him. And you don't get 3 tallbacks absolutely blanketing 3 tall forwards as happened in this game very often.
And my understanding is that Zach Clark had to remain on the ground when I have no doubt that East Perth would probably have liked to have rotated him under the service agreement, which requires the AFL players to dictate really what the AFL players do in their WAFL clubs each week. And if you look at it conversely, and people arguing about the benefits of an AFL reserves team in the WAFL, well, it may be advantageous to get some of these players out of the teams that are they're crippling at some stages of the game.
East Perth have got a dilemma too. They don't think that Hamish Shepherd is up to lead football at the moment, and based on his performance in the last 2 weeks, who I've seen, I think he's had about 8 or 10 touches in 2 games. He's been soundly beaten. He played forward against Claremont. He went back against West Perth. He got beaten in both those. They would like to play him in the reserves to give him a run around and get the ball a bit easier. They've been instructed that they can't. They must play him. I think Fremantle want to play him forward, but they can't because they've got Josh Smith in there and Polak in there and Pettifer in there and Zach Clark in there. So he's got to play back. He's clearly out of his depth. There's an example perhaps where a player needs to go to a lower level to find his feet before he comes back in again.
Yeah. Well, interesting point too, talking to some players after the East Perth West Perth game. They're not in favour of the AFL reserves, John. They are worried about what effect it may have to the integrity of the competition. And
well, unless you're an AFL person, why would you be in favour of it? That's the only players intimately involved, people intimately involved in the AFL clubs are the only ones that can be in favour. And even then, you question whether it's going to benefit them or not. But anyone else is not going to be in favour, you'd think.
I didn't speak to Craig Wolf and I didn't speak to Jason Salicic, but if you're either of those 2 players, you're playing at your top level. Unfortunately, AFL has passed you by. You're busting a gut for 4 days a week training, probably a bit of rehab on the Sunday. You're playing for the equivalent of 25 cents. You want to at least go out there and know that the opposition's fair dinkum. It's not some artificially put together team where players being played out of position and games really, almost thrown away or the results treated as irrelevant. So I think we have an onus to them. It was interesting that the AFL Players Association came out and supported the bid, told a furphy and by indicating that they'd discussed it with the WA Football Commission, which they haven't. They're representing 25 players in the WAFL each week. What about the other 450? Where do they represent them? They don't.
Well, they don't. So it's not the WAFPLA, it's the AFPLA, isn't it? Or is it not?
It might be the SFA very soon.
Raffle 'em.
So, John, West Perth, can they be a realistic top two contender this
No,
season?
absolutely no doubt. They're off to a very good start. They've got the most experienced backline going around. They've got a very good middle. Finding goals is, as always, will be their important or their biggest challenge. But their back and their middle are good enough to get them there, and they're off to a cracking start. And they've probably got a couple of games jump on the next. Anyone coming out of the fourth.
Well, some interesting fixtures coming out. Not to dismiss the Good Friday game, John. We'll talk about that in part 2 of Waffle On coming up next.